I think we can all admit that Quicksilver was the uncle that we all wanted to have when we were growing up. Hello interwebs and welcome to my review of WandaVision episode 6. Still don't actually know what the title of this video is because, yet again, for some weird reason, Disney just does not want to release the title of the episode when they release the actual episode itself. It's just a really weird trend. I do not know why they do that. It is just very strange. So anyways, I'm going to title this myself from now on. I'm just going to keep guessing at the titles and let's see how close I actually get to it. So call this episode Wanda in the Middle, because this episode was clearly riffing off of Malcolm in the Middle, the sort of early 2000s comedy show, and one show that I really have nostalgia for. Like all the other sitcoms that WandaVision has been sort of making fun of or parodying or satirizing or uplifting, whatever word you wish to use to describe whatever the hell this show is doing for sitcoms. I've liked those shows. I've seen episodes of those shows, but I haven't been like a huge fan of a lot of them. I think the older sitcom that I used to watch was MASH, which is definitely not in the line of like suburban family sitcoms at all. But this one, Malcolm in the Middle, is like spot on hitting my nostalgia because everything about how this episode was done, from the opening credits with like the sort of like VHS recorder thing, to the kids speaking directly to camera, to like the cutaways to random events and gags throughout the episode, I think were just hitting that perfect like nostalgia itch for me. I'm like, oh, I so remember this so hard. All I need is Walter White coming up in here being like the crazy dad and giving the crazy dad energy, or Frankie Muniz in here, and I would just be in absolute heaven. All that nostalgia stuff was really great. I think there was a lot of fun to be had in a lot of that parody, especially earlier on in the episode. But getting into the actual nitty-gritty of it, there were a lot of things throughout this episode that I really enjoyed. First and foremost, Evan Peters is freaking amazing. No shade at Aaron Taylor Johnson. He did a fine job as Quicksilver back in Age of Ultron, which I rewatched this week. He did okay as Quicksilver. Nothing bad, but nothing terribly memorable. But Evan Peters just brings this like such fun energy. And as I joked about at the top, he is like the perfect uncle to these kids. Every single moment that with Evan Peters in this episode is just pure gold, and his energy and just like level of just fun with Billy and Tommy was just absolutely fantastic. Every single moment with that just worked for me on a sitcom level, and just Evan Peters being Evan Peters as Quicksilver was absolutely wonderful. And I love the sort of interplay that he has with Wanda throughout the episode. I thought was really wonderful. Wanda sort of being a little bit off kilter with him because he does not look like the Quicksilver that she knows, and also sort of asking about like, why do you look different? And also just when they had that memory flashback into Sokovia, which was very funny, by the way, she sort of says, that's not how I remember it. And they played off as a joke, but there's little hints like maybe he's from a different universe as hers. But it is also leaving me to question things as well, because I'm like, well, he does remember getting shot and presumably killed, because there's that really horrific shot of him being dead, which scared the crap out of me. They did it again after Vision. I did not expect to see that again. And it worked just as well this time. I was totally off put by it. But obviously Quicksilver was shot Quicksilver was shot just as the Quicksilver in the MCU was shot, but Quicksilver in the X-Men universe, the one that presumably Evan Peters might be from, if we're dealing with a multiverse scenario here, he would not have been shot that way, at least as far as we know, given where the X-Men films ended. So that is kind of curious of like, is he the Quicksilver from this universe? Is he not? Is there a multiverse thing going on here? I'm definitely looking for setups to that. I'm definitely looking for answers to that question, hopefully coming by the end of the season. But there are definitely like little hints of that, but they kind of point in two different directions, which has me very intrigued, to say the least. I also loved the one moment where Wanda connects with Evan Peters. It's a wonderful moment, and I really loved that he was fully consciously aware of what was going on, that he knew that Wanda wasn't like mind controlling everybody. And he says, look, I'm not judging here. I'm your brother, you can talk to me. And I really love that she opened up to him in that moment. And we did get confirmation that she is not fully aware of how all this started, but she is in control of it. but she doesn't know how it started. Sort of still leading me into my Agnes is, in control, actually in control of this theory that I've got going on that I think all of us are kind of hanging our hat on at the moment here. And obviously that moment when she opens up to Quicksilver, totally wonderfully capped off by the sort of dead scene with him seeing him dead, that sort of moment of vulnerability leading to an absolute shocker. Great job. Speaking of Agnes, though, Vision's plotline in this episode was, creepy, but a little bit dragged out. I enjoyed it for what it was. Sort of Vision going off on his own and sort of doing his own investigation into what's going on, and seeing people on the edge of the town sort of be frozen and not completely moving, possibly even, are they even still alive sort of question, was very, very creepy to see. And sort of seeing that Wanda's control as you get further out is not as sustained as it is towards the center of the town. Wonderfully, wonderfully creepy there. And sort of him figuring that sort of stuff out. His scene with Agnes was also suitably creepy as he's starting to figure out, like, I'm dead? What's actually going on here? And him not knowing that he was an Avenger, sort of repeating that sort of piece of information that, like, we knew from last episode, that, like, he does not remember anything that happened before this. That's one thing I could say about this episode overall, that a lot of it was sort of like repeating information and confirming information that we already knew, and I'll touch upon other parts of the episode that do that as well. So I will say, in terms of exposition and moving the story forward, this one definitely didn't move the story as forward as it could have. So that sort of leads this episode to be a little bit lower in my estimation. Still really good, but that's one knock that I would kind of put against the episode. There's a lot of repeated information. However, the scene with Agnes was creepy for one reason, in that Agnes ends the sort of conversation on that sort of creepy witch laugh that she has. Now, clearly, that could be just a witch laugh. She's wearing a witch costume, could just be playing off of that little motif, but also, there's sort of that, like I said, that lingering theory that Agnes is in control, and so that creepy, like, off-putting thing of she's got that witch laugh. It feels weird that she's the only one on the edge of town that is able to move on the edge of town, that she has still a little bit of agency on the edge of town. Maybe she's there to throw Vision off. Maybe she's there to sort of push events in the way that she wants to. Sort of leads me to think that maybe Agnes is doing something a little bit more here. Another thing too, I should say, with Vision's plotline is I loved his coldness towards the top of the episode with Wanda, that when they have that opening, you can definitely sense the distance that's grown between them. I love that one line where he comes down the stairs and he says, it was the only thing in my closet. That's a line that, had it been delivered differently, could have been clearly just a sitcom line. You could have had the laugh track playing on their lines, like, there was nothing else in my closet, dear. But it's played so coldly. Paul Bettany just plays it absolutely wonderfully. So it's just clearly he's just pushing back against Wanda and feeling very distanced from her. So I liked that there's the sort of subversion of the line reading by Paul Bettany there. Wonderful, wonderful job. Oh, and I should say, getting to see WandaVision and Quicksilver in their original comics costumes were amazing, and using Halloween as an excuse to get them into that was truly wonderful. The explanation, too, that Wanda's Scarlet Witch costume was sort of a Sokovian sorceress, truly fantastic. So a lot of fun there. They even did Quicksilver's hair, which is wonderful. One other thing to mention on the sort of inside the Hex plotline, I will say Tommy and Billy sort of learning their powers was really cool to see. I liked that. Like I said, Evan Peters, like, yeah, you got Quicksilver powers, and sort of learning the dynamic between the two of those. Like, one brother's like, yeah, I'm the better brother, and you're the dumb, silly brother. That sort of dynamic between the two of them was fun. A little bit overplayed, but I mean, that it's a sitcom. That's kind of what we're here for. I will say the acting with the kids is not the best in the world. That was one thing that I will note, that the kids are fine. They're not like egregiously bad. They aren't terrible. They aren't like the best child actors in the world, but I understand it. It's hard to find good child actors, but it was just something to note. And I'm not hating on these kids. They're doing a fine job, but it just kind of was like, yeah, they're not particularly, making me go, wow, look how amazing their acting is. But I don't want to harp on that too much, because they are just kids. Outside of the Hex, I thought a lot of that storyline was fairly standard. The stuff going on with Monica, Wu, and Darcy. I thought all of it was fine, kind of inching the story along a little bit forward. I like the fact that they are now sort of like separated from the greater Sword team, that they're sort of like, yeah, we're doing our own thing, and we're going to fight back against the director of Sword, who, by the way, turned full, like, jerk like really, really quickly. Like, we got hints last episode that he was a jerk and that he was going to send the missile, but I kind of understood his point of view. And I made a point last review to say, like, I really hope that he doesn't become full on villain, because I did see his point of view to a degree. And this episode, while there are hints that he has maybe a secret agenda, maybe to doing with Vision that we don't fully know about, I was a little bit disappointed, just being honest, that he just turned full jerk. Like, he throws her mother back in her face, Monica's face, at her. Like, that's cold, dude, saying you're not, like, made out for this. It feels like a little bit of a complete turn from what we saw in, I think, episode 3, where he seemed very open and warm towards Monica. To just see him kind of do a 180 and become this complete jerk was honestly a little bit disappointing, and felt a little bit like a loss of the nuance of that character that could have been there. I know this is the MCU, and they kind of go for those more over-the-top villains, but given the morally grayness of this entire season of this show, I was a little bit disappointed to see him go full jerk here. Though I did like the fact that the snap was brought up within that conversation, that the fact that Monica has not been through the snap means that she's a little less cynical than everyone else, that she didn't have to live during those 5 years of horribleness. So I like that was sort of brought up as a reason, the sort of trauma of that was brought up for a reason why he's a little bit more distrusting, but still kind of felt like a big turn for the character that wasn't completely earned, in my opinion. But then we get to the end of the episode, which was absolutely really, really cool to see, with Vision stepping out of the hex and just kind of breaking my heart. Just seeing him fall apart and break apart was like, oh my God, Vision, please be okay, please survive. It was really devastating just to see him break apart like that, and Darcy like screaming for them to help him and wondering why no one would help him. It was really devastating to see, and kind of is setting me up to like prepare my heart to be like, Vision's probably going to end up dead by this season. Like, that, I'm betting you by the end of the season, this is just speculation, that Vision is, Wanda is going to, break out of the hex and stop the hex, and by doing so, she's going to have to give up Vision. They'll have a beautiful little end scene, but Vision is going to be dead by the end of the series. I think the bigger question will be, will Quicksilver still be alive, and will the twins still be alive, I think are sort of the bigger questions, but I'm almost certain Vision's going to be dead, and that is going, I guarantee you right now, folks, I'm going to sob hard tears when Vision dies in this show. But this scene was definitely preparing me for that, because it was devastating to see. And the fact that the twins had the connection with their father to sort of save him. Billy, I believe, was the one that had the connection. And Wanda expanding the hex out was just really, really cool. And I loved sort of them turning into all the FBI and SWORD agents into like a circus like theme. Thought that was really, really intriguing. So I'm very excited for next episode. So overall, to sort of end my thoughts on this episode, I thought there was a lot of fun bits. I loved the Malcolm in the Middle sort of nostalgia that I got from it. Evan Peters is absolutely fantastic. And some interesting little tidbits of creepiness going throughout the episode, and sort of hints for what's going on in the larger story. But I did feel like this episode was a little bit sort of reiterative of a few different things throughout the episode, and kind of inched the story along only at a snail's pace instead of the slightly more faster pace that we've become used to in the past few episodes. So by no means a bad episode by any stretch of the imagination. I think it was still absolutely wonderful, but a little bit sort of on the lower grade of the episodes that we've been used to this season. But do you agree with me or do you disagree with me? I'd love to hear all your thoughts on this episode of WandaVision down in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more reviews of WandaVision and discussions of geek and pop culture and the issues that we can find therein. And I also have a Patreon where you can help support me and do all those things. But beyond all of that, I hope that you, as always, live long and prosper. Don't know why I got so sexy there at the end, but you know why I did. Yeah, that's right. Patrons, you are my patrons. You are so awesome. So here are your names. Catherine Lambeth, Eli Berg Moss, Ashley Allen, Bo Kikio, Miranda Janelle, Ashlyn Solstice, Greg Gillim, Stephen Kleinard, Camille T, Randy Thompson, Stephen Schuhart, Boyd Earl, and Mary Beth Earl, Wellington Marcus, Wayne Twitchell, Rick Osborne, Roar, Ish the Mad, Piston Twisted Garage, Dominic Noble, Buttoneer, John Steele, Michael Beam, Gavin Robinson, Carmen Olson, William Stewart, Amanda Ronya Idania, Hannah F., Nathan Olson, Andrew Jorgensen, BBD, Jason Knott, Maeve. Saying it twice because I can. Andrew K., Bree Beecher, Jasmine, Nathan Steele, Skylar Gray, Lily, Tiffany Danger, Sean Piper, Wen Dizzle Bizzle, Bush, Jane Packard, Geek Filter, Mari Neckard, Jacob Tovar, Polymenia, Celestial Dawn, Jean Mithune, Sarah Bystam, Din, Mark the Edge, Corey Honkanen, and Vale the Pale, Dunn, Lysa, W. Randy Eady, Andrew Lamoureux, Zone 1 Librarian, and finally, Michael Hardy. I am sorry for that, but seriously, thank you so much, patrons. You really mean the world to me, and you really are changing my life, even if I may have changed your life for the worst with my singing. Thank you so much for all of your support.